So I'm Manchan Mangan, and I've written this book, Three Dogs, Banshee Fingers, and Other Irish Words for Nature. And it's been illustrated by this guy here, by Steve Doogan. So maybe the best thing, Steve, if you tell me what you know about me, and then I'll do what I know about you.
Okay, well, what I've gleaned about you is that you are a writer, a journalist, a great traveller. You've travelled a lot in South America and far beyond. You've authored a number of travel books. You have a deep and abiding interest in language. You speak many languages, and you have a particular interest in the Irish language. You have strong family ties to perhaps what you call deep republicanism. Your great-granduncle was the O'Rahilly, not just any O'Rahilly, the O'Rahilly. And Sheila, I forget her second name, was your grandmother. And it's a fascinating story, and I'm very, very keen to hear a bit more about this. So
brilliant. And for you, and so like the interesting thing, this is our second time meeting ever.
Yes, yeah.
We met for like 10 minutes about 3 weeks ago.
Wearing masks.
Yeah, wearing masks.
It was...
But like you changed my life. Like, so I had a book out 2 years ago about the Irish language called 32 Words for Field, which nobody should have bought. It was a book about the Irish language, but it came out in the market and it had this powerful, alluring cover on it done by you. And I said, I had never met you, and that had nothing to do with me. That was the Publishers Guild decided that you were the publisher the illustrator to lure people into this book. And it was this potent, really graphic, loads of images and layers built on this small image, because it's a small enough book. And it was a lot of the reason that people just picked up this book. So you're an illustrator, design illustrator of art illustrations, of commercial illustrations. You've been doing it like for many years, originally from Scotland.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Yes.
And people will recognize your art because you see it on beer, in shops, in movement, as well as in art things. There's so many.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, we don't know each other. We haven't met, but now we have a chance to talk.
Exactly. And I'm very pleased to say that you said I changed your life, because you certainly changed mine. I mean, this project, Tree Dogs, never mind the last one, 32 Words for Field, but Tree Dogs is probably my favourite piece of work I've ever done. Wow. And it feels like, as an illustrator, I've roamed all over the place for about 20 years. I'm very promiscuous in my styles. I don't even believe in the idea of style. I believe that we can all speak many styles if you wish. A style is just another kind of vocabulary that you can, or a language you can choose to speak in. But with Tree Dogs, it feels like it is the kind of culmination of a style that began with 32 Words for Field. Quite a graphic, quite a strong, etchy, lino-cutty, engraved style. And yeah, it's been a very satisfying project. And yeah, I'm thrilled to meet you properly. And hopefully I don't say something too nonsensical here. So.
And isn't it interesting the way that the styles and our both worlds meet? Like the first thing I did, like the world didn't make sense to me, and I moved down to Wicklow, to Newcastle, to Newtown and Kennedy, and I'd just be, this when I was 19, I'd be digging potatoes and pulling leeks in the middle of winter, and suddenly that made sense, that grittiness. And otherwise I came from Dublin, like I went to college, all this airy head stuff, and that didn't make sense to me. And that sort of being close to the ground, being this etchy thing, and that was why I was trying to talk about the Irish language in those terms. It was a language that was rooted. And along comes you, first in 32 Words for Field, and then in Tree Dogs and Banshee Fingers. And you seem to make that earthiness, that solidity, that groundedness of a really vague concept like the language even more based.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, because what I wanted to avoid was I mean, I heard this as a children's book, and I know that some people say it kind of straddles adult and children's books, but I really wanted to avoid a sentimentalization of nature. Or a kidification, or a very juvenile take on it. I don't think kids need that, essentially. I grew up on wanting to know what a tiger looked like, not a kind of idealized, childlike version of a tiger. I wasn't afraid of tigers. I wanted to see them in all their gory power, if you like. And that felt the same for me. I didn't want to, make these too childlike or too cartoony, Disneyfied versions of things. And I think, just to allude very quickly to one thing that I felt everything pivoted on, was the choice with these animals to remove their eyes. Yeah. Is to kind of, it seems almost kind of, it's like ghoulish. You think, why are you doing that? It's like suddenly it's a mask of an animal. And I felt like I didn't want to do an animal. I wanted to do something that felt like the spirit of the animal. Like this was the archetype of that animal. And so when I did it, I thought we need to stay. And I was worried that the publisher would say, no, now it's looking a bit haunting. It's like, are these all dead animals or something? I was like, and they went with it. And I was really, really pleased with that. And just to touch on another quick thing, before we get into the content of this, prior to this incarnation, it was a very colourful book. I think you might have seen some of the spreads of that. And that was me going, well, it's a children's book, I better make it a little bit appealing and colourful. But we got this incredible designer called Graham Few, who designed your previous book. And he's got the confidence and the courage to just no. He goes with his gut and he said, look, monochrome. And I was like, yeah, but that's what I wanted. I just didn't dare to make it monochrome. But it takes that kind of vision, I think. That's big words, but it does. It's someone who understands, no, you don't have to prettify or sentimentalize this stuff. It's strong enough as it is. So yeah, that was I was very pleased with that.
Brilliant. And like the first thing, when people notice even the front cover or the back cover, you suddenly see all these animals without eyes. And they're freaky. There's a cockerel without an eye, an assog, a stoat without an is that a pine marten? That's an assog, it's a stoat.
A stoat, yeah.
And like, because I was showing it even to kids yesterday and they were going, oh, there are zombie animals in home. but then they said, no, they're not zombies. They said, because zombies have white eyes, but they have eyes, they're white eyes. Whereas they say these animals just have no eyes. So it's different. So just for a dramatic page, like let's open there. The page is entirely black, so it's reversed. Did you design it that way, or did you have it originally, the rushes were in black?
Well, we knew that I wanted to maximize the amount of black I could use. And so simply having all these black animals on white backgrounds, I felt, well, come on, we've got the chance to have some surprising spread. So it's as simple as that, to be honest. But
and for me, I loved it because I wanted nature, but I wanted nature that had stories behind it. And like the Irish for an owl is ulchavan. So okay, that's the word for an owl. That's the word you find in a dictionary. But there is this older word, ceann cait. And I heard it when I was growing up in West Kerry. And I just love that, ceann cait, the head of a cat. So the fact that they decide that an owl was this animal, a bird of its own volition, but at the same time it had this sense that it was like a cat, a nighttime feline thing. And you caught that perfectly. Because the thing is, because the rounded face and the tufted ears is why it's like a cat, which is exactly what's there. Oh, and there's even darker words like, screchog religa, the screecher of the graveyard, which is a brilliant word for an owl. And then cailachiha, basically the witch of the night. So the fact that it is all dark and night. Why is there a little mouse? Is the secret mouse, or is there a reason for the mouse?
I snuck him in there, actually. No one asked me to do a mouse, and I thought I need to have a little kind of like a detail over here, and the mouse was included for that. But I mean, I love the project that you've embarked upon. I know you don't want to see it as curating a language which is endangered. I don't know how you would like to express this, but all these pictures, all these observations of the nuances of nature, which are captured in these phrases and in these words. I mean, you see, you must be tired of hearing about, 50 words for snow, it's that. Or the German facility to make compound words that describe something that nobody else has noticed. I mean, what do you think of that? Do you get this echoed back at you as being something you've seen elsewhere? And is this the Irish version of it? I mean, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that that are interesting to me is that some of the words are very simple. They're very almost childlike for looking at nature. And I've seen that in indigenous cultures too. But I had a talk about it 2 weeks ago with a native elder, an Ojibwe elder from Canada. And it was really interesting because I thought the Irish words were really rooted in nature, and were really pure. But of course, we are a farming people. So many of our words, that we're aware that even an owl can affect like little chickens or something. So everything we look at nature, we look at it through a farming point of view. Why the road is the boher, the cow way. And that's not quite as pure as a hunter-gatherer people who really are just looking at nature and them as a natural part of it, rather than us as custodians. But before we go, isn't there some tradition in Renaissance or medieval art to have a little mouse to show, I don't know, to eating a bit of cheese on the ground or something to show man's humility?
There may be. There is that thing in these pictures like Memento Mori where you get a skull. What's the name for that anamorphism? Have you seen the one? There's a famous Holbein picture where there's two kind of gentlemen and you see this odd streak running through the picture. And if you look at it from an angle, it's a skull.
No.
It's a Memento Mori. It's a fantastic thing. And Holbein's one of the kings of portraiture. He's the best, But just inserting little objects that mean something else, of course.
Yeah. And so with this, you have a challenge because I'm getting these words for the birds. Like smolini it's just a word for young thrushes, but the reason I had it is because of that beautiful phrase. It would set the young thrushes dancing in your heart. And that word schlimpercht isn't really dancing. It's the act of shards of light moving through the sky. So it's almost, I don't know, is it a coincidence or not that you did this? It's like it's active motes, dust motes.
No, yeah, completely. I was thinking about this earlier about something I did want to raise is that, what do you call them, sclimpini?
Yeah.
Well, all of these little sparkling motifs that scatter throughout the book, there's two purposes. One is that they serve a decorative, the copper ink counterpoint to all the black. The other part is that this is about the other world to some degree, and these are kind of glimpses of flickerings of light of something coming through from the background. I always want that to be a reminder that there is this shimmering of something coming through from the background. Yeah, it's very deliberate. These are little kind of signals from something, and so you see little amoeba-like shapes, little kind of microscopic organisms and things. Some are stars. But they're all, I think what I understood from, that they're little sparkles, little sclimpini. I nearly said ishpini, which is a bit external of Irish.
So they're basically the other world sort of bleeding into our reality or something like that? Or?
Yes, yeah, basically, yeah, which I think fits with this business with the empty eyes. I think it's what's interesting about collaborations is you often find out after the fact what the illustrator was up to was not necessarily what you were doing, but it adds a kind of dimension to it. And this is the result of two I nearly said talents, but two people coming together to produce something, So,
and isn't it interesting? Like so many of us adults now don't have time to linger, but you remember when you were young, and I remember like a kid just staring at this and thinking, why is this? Which first is this? Is a grebe. Why is he on a little tussock? And is he on a lake or in the river? And they're constantly wondering. And and like it's just the texture of the ground. So this is a bit of mud, or is it like stuck up in a lake? Oh, he's made, that's a net. What does it say? A small dumpy water bird is a little spagger a tone. A spagger is a person with a big clumsy foot or an ungainly way of walking, and town or ton means wave. The little grebe does have big feet, or rather cartoonishly enormous ones. These look comical and seem clumsy on land, but in fact they are a superb adaptation to the bird's aquatic lifestyle. So basically you created a bit of his land and a bit of the water.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And are you having to get to look at a load of images of grebes to get a sense of it?
Basically, yeah, because one of the challenges was that I wanted it to be a very, very accurate representation of each animal. There's no way that I could take so many liberties with the anatomy of an animal that people are saying, well, that's not a grebe anymore. What's he doing? He's turning it into a cartoon. But I did make some distortions to help the graphic silhouette, because this style is all about the silhouette on the page. And I couldn't just go with the purely photographic because it'd be quite dead. So there's the alteration of the silhouette of the animal, and then there's the use of different graphic marks. I kind of developed a language, which I was very happy with. I was like, oh, this seems to work. And I had to just run it out throughout all the animals, but using certain marks, which were quite simple, or I tried to be restrained, but sometimes it's so much fun doing this that you want to keep adding more feathers and more fur and things, But some of the animals are a bit more distorted than others, like the wolf, for instance, is an undulating kind of...
Or even the pig. The pig is great. So the whole page of pigs, that's like, so you've got the cupánach, and cupán is a cup, or can also be a saucer. In Monaghan, it's a saucer. So cupánach is a little pig who can only be eaten out of the saucer. I only saw that for a while. I thought it was the ring in the pig, but actually that's the saucer he's drinking.
It's a saucer, yeah. So it looks like a ring in his nose.
Yeah. And look at the detail of the tail, the pig's tail, the femida, a pig's curly tail, which comes from femine, which is a little tail or a tuft. And also it says the curled feather on the tail of a drake. But I love that it's connected to feminach, and feminach means hypocrisy, but it also means an animal who bites the tails of other animals.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so excellent. How do you decide that the whole focus of this page is going to be the little tiny pig's tail?
No, well, I mean, that's the kind of choice. There were so many elements had to go on this page that some things just happened by accident. You can't really take credit for everything. Graham Few, the designer, I'll say his name a couple of more dozen times, he's the kind of genius that brought all this together. He made your words look beautiful with lovely typography. He made my work look good. It's sometimes it's just another guy's decisions that, put these things. And your eye will gravitate to, I mean, sometimes I'll have made an image that was so jewel-like and detailed, and he'll make it tiny. And part of me is like, no, it's got to be big. And then you're like, no, that's a great idea. There's a little tiny bird at the very beginning of the book. Yeah. Just to see on the 4 page here.
Oh,
this little guy here. And it's almost like a piece of jewellery. And I was like, fantastic. That's why it's great to work with good people, you know.
So that was done full size. That's in real detail. Whoa.
That's big. You could blow that right up and you would see loads and loads of stuff going on. But he kept it small. Just such intelligent decisions, I think, on his part, you know. So, yeah.
And when there was some idea that gold is kind of an expensive ink. Do you know anything about that? I remember Gil saying...
Yeah, I mean, to use metallic inks, we were going to use actually fluorescent inks. Remember that phase?
Okay, right.
So it would have been like, ding, you know, open the book, but that was a whole other thing.
There's that wolf, the sinewyiness of the wolf.
Right, yeah.
That's threatening.
That was really pushing the, you know, the undulating...
And is that slaver? Is that saliva coming down?
Yeah, a little bit of spit is dropping down there, yeah.
And this curl, I saw that on 32 Words for Field. There was a bit in some of the fields had this texture to them.
Right, yeah. Exactly. So a lot of the stuff that began with 32 Words for Field, you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, something's crystallizing here, a style, you know. And I, as I said, I worry about that because a lot of people cling to their style. And you think, God, you're not allowed to grow past that point. You're like, that must be horrible. So I try to work, and I put this in quotes, as more as an artist where I'm allowed to explore things. I'm allowed to move on. The only thing I had to do was try to be consistent throughout this one book, right? The next book I do might not have that style at all. So I'd like it to, but I get very bored very quickly. I want to move to the next stage, you know. So, but we'll see what happens, you know.
Right, find ways. Sure. But yeah, that Madra Alta, there's so much going on there, isn't it? Like Madra Alta, which is in one way just Alta is wild, so wild dog. But I don't know why that's the least interesting name because I just wanted to as a lure into people to get the most. Well, Fuelchu is okay. Fuel means either a screech or a wild thing. So and Cu is obviously a dog, you know, Cuchulainn. Right. So it's a wild dog or a screeching dog, or otherwise it can be Fuel can also be glide. So a fuelon, I think we have a different meaning for the seagull fuelon, but anyway, it's a glider. Unlikely this is the glide. So it's either a wild dog or the screeching, the howling dog. Fuel means wilder, but then the best word, and the word you seem to have used as your counterpoint, Machtira, the son of the land, basically half human, but really demonic, and just sort of, a shape-shifting being. Yeah,
what's that word that was in 32 Words for Field for when Cuchulainn goes into his warp spasm?
Oh yeah, the Riestra.
Is that how you say it, Riestra? And that's this kind of gross exaggeration.
It's like the Hulk. It's like when the Hulk goes into his mode.
Hulking out, yeah. It seems to be hulking out at this point.
Yeah. It's so much going on in that. And it's so different from the lovely, like, tame little furry humans with Paddington ears, the fox.
He's quite kind of innocent looking by comparison.
But then again, I just came up with a load of words, okay? But then someone had the brilliant idea, in fact, Deirdre Nolan, the editor, to put foxglove and fox together and then to somehow put it beside wolf.
Right.
There's a lot of people, it's interesting when you're an artist, I'm not used to working in a team, you probably are, but you put your little bit in it and people make it so much richer.
Big time.
Yeah, like the fact that Deirdre decided all the words were going to lay it that way, then she gives them to you bring it a whole other thing, and then as you say, Graham decides to lay it out.
Oh, you know, when he showed me the final version of this, it took me a while. At first I was like, what's going on? Because it had shifted slightly from what I thought it would be. Yeah. But after a few days, I remember going through it and almost feeling emotional and thinking, this is actually quite good. I think I wrote to you, I was like, this is not bad, you know, this is all right. But that's for other people to decide, you know. I think but it's satisfying enough, you know.
And there's two things I want to talk about here. But maybe the background thing first now that you were talking about, because if I'm now my eyes being drawn to just these simple lines, but there's so much. They're not simple anyway. That's that other thing of it's almost the zone, the twilight zone.
Again, static. This is Graham's intelligent use. I nearly did that. This is rain. This is falling rain. These gold slashes coming down, and I did much more kind of dopey, kind of cartoony rain. And he said, "What about this rain?" And it's just vertical, almost like computer lines, which is a great counterpoint to the organic things I was doing. And I was like. And then you become seduced by it, and it's just exactly right, you know, just straight down falling rain, which is almost like quite an Irish thing, you know, straight from above.
So you didn't even draw that rain, did you?
No, that's amazing. Graham drew that rain, which I love it. Yeah.
But is that kind of cheeky? If you have an illustrator, and suddenly someone else is illustrating on top of your work? No.
I told him to have at it. When he suggested it, and I was like, "Can we have that?" I mean, oh God, yeah. He could do anything, yeah.
And then the lovely idea, the juxtaposition of these very linear things, but again, this coiling animal, like that beautiful softness of that. Yeah. So the Usheen, and today someone asked, like, please, how can I get a print of an Oisín? There's obviously someone called Oisín and they're desperate. They
Right,
want
yes,
the word.
yes,
And like, but that's a whole story for someone who's called Oisín. You've got this gorgeous little baby deer, like a Bambi-like deer. And then the whole idea that Oisín means so much more, that Oisín is basically, the people who are called Oisín are connected to the spirit of the deer. Like in Kilkenny, you know, there's the Ossory, the Bishop of Ossory. They were, that whole area, is it Kilkenny or Wexford, that area in the southeast, they were obviously, they were connected to us, to the deer. And that means they were probably the people of the deer. Either they had a god deity, a deer in the form that they worshipped, or otherwise they weren't deer hunters, they weren't deer herders. But so you have a Bishop of Ossory today connected to the deer. And again, this common Irish name means I am deer person. You know, so we're all going to Native American culture and think God's amazing. People are called Howling Wolf and Eagle Man. Like, do we have the word, well, we have the word roan in this book, seal. Ronan means seal man. Oisín, it means deer man. And then the lovely thing here, that Oisín's, Oisín, because his mother was turned into a deer by a druid, and the name of the druid, Far Dorcha, dark man. Right. So, like, if we were looking for evidence why your images should be so dark, like, throughout the words, there's this really dark concept. Right.
Yeah. No, it seems appropriate. But you mentioned earlier on that there was something in the book you wanted to ask me about, and you thought I might be bashful about replying to, is the use of magical symbols.
Yeah. There's some really powerful symbols that
I can explain that if you would like.
Go on, tell me.
Okay, I've included in the book some experiments. I take a passing interest in the practice of magic, and it's kind of weird to be saying that on camera, because now my life will never be the same. It's not the kind of thing you want to admit to, because people think you've lost your marbles, or you're not a trustworthy materialist about life. I am. I'm a very cynical person. But there's a whole community and a thread of thought, which, there's a thing called chaos magic, which was practiced in the 80s. It kind of originated mostly in the north of England, and it draws upon the ideas of a man called Osmond Spare, who was an English illustrator and a practicing magician in the thread of the Golden Dawn and all that Yeats was a member of. And what it boils down to is this, is that making an image which is an intention of yourself, it's something that you would like to happen, right? And you form basically a logo or a symbol of that intention by taking, and it sounds absolutely bananas, but a lot of people get very enthusiastic about it because they kept saying, look, I know this sounds nuts, but it's kind of working. So I don't know what the mechanism is, but I do it now and again, and it does appear to work. Now, whether it's a kind of a psychological operation where you focus your intention and it happens to orient you more in that direction in life, so the things you want come to be, or what the mechanism is. But I've found quite spooky results from making these things, and it's very odd. So that's why I've gone from being a very kind of cynical materialist to allowing reality to be a bit more porous at the edges, a bit more, I've become a bit more flaky, shall we say. Yeah. But I think that goes hand in hand with what's happened over COVID lockdown, where people are slightly a bit more flexible about their attitude to the world, to the universe. And I think why they're responding to your books as well, because it carries a lot of that. It carries a lot of these ideas of animism, paganism. And I'm really curious about how you deal with all that, because there must be so many threads of philosophy coming at you. People saying, I get what you're saying, Manchan, and you're like, do you though? Or is this more dingbats coming at me? I mean, do you find that you get a lot of wild-eyed hippies coming at you and with, cockeyed theories? Yes, and you've got to humour it. I mean, just what I said there is pretty out there, so I can imagine.
Yeah, but something is happening in society. Like all the old conventions are breaking down. Everything, the commercial world is like collapsing. It cannot, our religion is, our banking, our governments, everything. And so they're looking for something newer. And as you said, they're willing to check out things and to imagine things and to doubt the conventions. And so that's exactly what I've been doing all my life, and the beauty is there's no proper answer. If you decide that actually the conventional rules aren't right, you're not going to find other conventional rules that are right. It's just open to everything. Yeah. So as you said, so many people come to me. So what I did was, with that 32 words for field, and a bit with this, I realised there's so much in the Irish language that I don't understand. First, there's this whole other world that it's hard for me to understand. I know the real world, but there's a world beyond, and I can show to all the Irish words that refer to that. And then there's this other concept of Irish phrases built on mythology. And mythology, the one thing we know, it's not logical. It just goes into fantasy. It goes backwards in time. It's like it's almost like a wormhole. It expands out like the universe and then hits the wormhole, the black hole, and contracts into itself. Right. Now, I don't understand that as a concept, so I just put all those ideas out there and sort of simpler ideas. And as you said, everyone is going to interpret them in a different way because, but in the same way with illustrations. Like as you say, when you put those symbols there, like I first thought, okay, is there something to decipher? But you're saying it's not to decipher. There's no. You've done it as a personal, almost brand to manifest something.
Yes, basically, and whether or not that has any foundation in reality or not, I don't know. But I've found that sometimes these things have somebody defined magic to me the other day as doing weird things to make weird things happen. Right, and it's quite a pithy enough distillation of the whole thing. And if you put aside all the embarrassment, all the kind of, oh my God, what will people think of me? It's a lot of fun because it's essentially about regarding the world as possessing more meaning than you would otherwise give it. I think one of the common sicknesses that people have is that things become stripped of meaning. And that's why people are sad and they feel disconnected from reality. So the practice of magic can often be a way of re-imbuing things with meaning. And I think that fits quite well. I mean, what you said about, you do it in Arananim when the first people arrived in Ireland, it's a mythological narrative, obviously, and they declare, I am the hawk, I am this, I am that. It's not saying there's the hawk over there, there's the wind over there. It says, I am, we are our environment, we are this. And it's when you separate those things out, it seems wrong. It seems to have been a wrong turn.
Yeah, not to realise we were all united.
Right.
Yeah, and again, you taking that leap is so based in the reality of the language and in reality of the words. Like there's a word here, sun umusgrena. It's a more Old Irish. It's not really being used anymore. Good, it says it here that it is. This magical term from the Old Irish refers to blisters caused by the sun on the leaves of certain herbs that when eaten were believed to give the gift of poetry.
Yeah.
Like what a concept.
Yeah.
That the sun can imbue a leaf with a blister that will give you enlightenment or inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all these words, like it was a great page for bringing on the really intense magic symbols. Osserlicht, which is just believed that magic herbs could allow you to tell the future. And there are dozens of words. So Dahu is my favourite. It's a magical power that enables you to be dealt the best cards from the pack. And then Tuala Sog refers to a girl who can cast magic spells.
Right, yeah,
so good.
Yeah. Like there's so much to this as well. When I was researching this, these little symbols, they weren't sigils before now. They were actually, I went to the National Museum and I thought, sun magic. I was researching and I found these Neolithic gold embossed circles. And it said these are to do with worship of the sun and with ritual, happenings. And I thought, yeah, maybe them. So the first incarnation of them was as a gold disc with everything very faithfully produced. And it didn't make the grade, it didn't work, but I was wandering around at the time and I saw them embossed on this amazing shrine up the back. Now, I don't know whether you're going to twig the next thing, but in the National Museum, I saw this box shrine and I thought, look at these beautiful things. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to borrow from this. And I looked at the label and it said Shrine of St. Mangan.
Whoa.
And I was like, okay.
That's
and again, I'm defining myself as a wild hippie here, but I thought maybe listen to coincidence. Let coincidences inform some decisions. So I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm on the right track here,
And so was the pattern on the Shrine of St. Mangan is built into that?
They had these gold embossed things that I'd already been looking at and admiring. I thought, wait a minute, it's got flipping Magan on it as well. So
Man.
It's quite opposite, isn't it?
Yeah. But Steve, what I'd love to get a sense is for readers to know how you made these. So they look like they're all lino cut. Is that what they are? Etchings?
They look like lino cuts. See, I'm a printmaker in my spare time as well, and I make a lot of lino. But for this, it was completely impractical to make a million lino cuts. There's too many changes you need to make. So these are all made digitally, but they are simulated lino cuts that arise from the way that I know lino behaves when you cut it. So here's one I made earlier on. I've literally made a version of the goat from the book, and I can show you that now.
Great, yeah, let's look.